And now here's part 2 of our episode.
All right, Jared, tell us, why is that the standout track for you?
The thing about Bowie, and I don't. This is going to sound. I don't. This is not a negative. He was a very conscious rock star. He wanted to be a rock star, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he was calculated in what he did, and he knew that he needed to connect. And his records at this point, like the couple records before this, Hunky Dory, The Man Who Sold the World, they did okay. They didn't do great. You know, his first album was not a big hit at all, and he needed to find his audience and get them to hold on to him, and he needed that. And a lot of people say that this song was specifically Angie Bowie, his first wife. It was Angie's idea that he had to have a closer, some anthemic closer that brought people in.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's
that.
true, that's open for debate, but that's what a lot of people say.
Yeah.
So with this record and with Ziggy Stardust, he became the patron saint of the misunderstood and the dispossessed, and the, like he really did.
Yeah.
And however contrived this closer might be, there is no deny, at least in my mind, there is no denying that when he screams, when his voice breaks on, "You're not alone," he punched 3 million kids right in the heart when he said that.
Yeah.
And from what I gather, I think this is interesting too. When the Ziggy Stardust tour started in 1972, and they always closed with Rock and Roll Suicide, and he would get to "You're Not Alone, Give Me Your Hands Because You're Wonderful," kids didn't know how to react. They sort of just sat there. They didn't know what it was that he wanted them to do. But by the time that tour closed with the famous show at the Hammersmith Odeon in 1973, people were rushing the stage with their arms up in the air, right?
Yeah.
That's, I believe, this is my opinion, that it is this song and that moment, that's what made David Bowie a star.
Yeah.
More than, people talk about the BBC performance, Top of the Pops of Starman, and that's very important. People talk, like Bowie historians talk about that a lot, when he threw his arm over Mick Ronson's shoulder, which seems so innocuous today, but was so earth-shattering then. And there's truth to that. But for me, I think the moment that really matters for the rise of David Bowie is him screaming, "You're not alone. Give me your hands because you're wonderful." And even though the song is called Rock and Roll Suicide, right, it's actually an imploring to live.
Yeah. Oh, Jared, come on.
He's saying don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Be here with me. You're not alone. Give me, this sounds ridiculous. I'm getting a little emotional just thinking about it, because you can feel the power of it, because he, post-war Britain was a mess. And it was a mess for a long time. And there were all these kids there who didn't know what the hell to do, or who they were, or how they fit into this world of their parents, who were so ravaged by World War II that they still didn't know how to behave as people, Yeah. And it wasn't just Bowie, but I think Bowie is more important than any of the other glam, and Bowie transcends glam rock, but the glam rock movement, he made all these kids who feel like weirdos, who weren't hippies, who weren't burnout hippies, who, they were doing something else. And him saying to them, "You're not alone," and the emotion he puts into that, the emotion he puts into saying that line, and his voice breaks. And also, it's hard to hear, but when you listen really closely on like really good headphones to this track, you can hear Bowie crying at the end. Because he was weeping in the booth as he was singing "Give Me Your Hands Because You're Wonderful," and you can hear it a little bit. It's still on there.
Man.
The thing that Bowie did is that, as calculated as he was, as contrived as he could be, that never stopped him from feeling the things he felt or connecting to his audience. This is the song, in my opinion, that connected every kid in the UK, and then every kid in the United States who felt like a weirdo, who felt like they didn't have a place in the world. This is the song that made them feel that they weren't alone, that at least one person understood them. That's why this is the standout track. Every song in this album is a stunner. As I said, they're all bangers. and I could speak at length about all of them.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, this is the song that made David Bowie a star because it made everybody who listened to it think that they weren't alone.
Well, Jared, I think I might need to give you the single highest point total.
I was going to say, I think he broke the scale.
I think you did. I'm gonna put you right at a 6 million point award.
Yes.
For what it was the patron saint.
Do I get to play the multi-ball? Do I get to go with the...
Fuck yeah, you do.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and the thing of it is that we just listened to the song. This song is now 51 years old, and even now, when I hear it, I've listened to Rock and Roll Suicide 100 million times. When he says, "You're not alone. I'll help you with the pain. You're not alone," and his voice breaks.
Yeah,
it just kills me. It still just kills me. Also, this song has one of my favorite single lyric lines of his when he says, "Don't let the sun blast your shadow." That's a great
fucking line. Yeah,
it's a great lyric, and it's one of my favorite single lyrics of his. And he's a great lyric writer, but that's one of my favorites.
You've described this track in a very different way than I had interpreted it, because I think like when I first listened to this, I got a lot of I first thought of the movie Velvet Goldmine, which is not a biography of David Bowie, but very much inspired.
It's not, yeah, right.
And Jonathan Rhys-Meyers' character in that, I felt like I thought of that. I also thought of Midnight Radio at the end of Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Yep.
But like those two things don't feel like they feel okay. Velvet Goldmine, that character feels very surface. Hedwig feels like that character is a little bit deeper, and I had sort of like put this song in with amongst those two, but this feels like it's almost like the rock star is shedding his skin in this song to actually make a direct connection instead of just have it be all about him on stage performing in front of everybody.
Right. That's correct. That's absolutely correct. He created a community with this song, and also let us not forget this. And Michael, you'll appreciate this in particular. Bowie studied theater. He studied mime. He worked in the theater. He worked in performance groups.
Yeah,
he
baby.
Understood the importance and the power of theatricality. That's why they all dressed like that. Yeah. It wasn't because they didn't walk around dressed like Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars all day, every day.
Yeah.
It was a show, and he knew he was putting on a show. And I think that's important too, which is that to say the music of the mid to late 60s, which I love, and some of it is so powerful. But like these were men and women in like jeans and flannel shirts and real earthy stuff, which is great. But Ziggy Stardust is a show. David Bowie was a show, and what I think is so funny is that when you listen to this record on the whole, or the records of T-Rex or Slade or The Sweet or any of those glam bands from the 70s from the UK, really all they're doing is playing 50s rock and roll. That's really all that they're doing with costumes and glitter. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, the rhythm.
That's a good take. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Because those are the guys. Because Elvis was a show. Chuck Berry was a show. They all put on shows. They were showmen and show women, but it was more men than women. But it was still a show.
And some of the showmen. I mean, frankly, like the way that David Bowie played with gender and sexuality also like demonstrated a sort of ahead of his time sort of understanding of that.
But even in that, right? He's doing Little Richard.
Yeah,
he is.
He adored, as you said, Tyler.
They were all doing Little Richard. That's what we come to find out now,
right? Because rock and roll, and like I don't want to be like whatever, but like rock and roll is not about gender. Rock and roll is about humanity. It's the music of the people.
Yeah,
that's the thing about it. And he knew a couple things, right? Again, he was calculated. He knew it would cause a storm. He knew it would got a lot of attention, and it did. He knew that when he said, in an interview with Melody Maker, I'm bisexual and always have been. I'm gay and I always have. He knew that would create a storm. Mm-hmm. He wasn't foolish about that. That drew eyes to him, cameras to him, reporters to him, that then made people pay attention to his music more. So it was all calculated, but calculation doesn't mean insincere, right? It doesn't have to mean that. And I think that Bowie was many things, but he was never insincere.
Yeah.
That's a good take on it, especially considering some of the more, the darker, you could say the darker moments for him where, with the kind of like misinterpretation. You read back on some of the controversial stuff with the Nazi stuff,
is the
the racism one. Stuff. Yeah.
He was a provocateur, I mean, here's the other thing too. I mean, I'm going off on all these tangents, but the other thing that without question that Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars did is they also invented punk rock with this record. I mean, every Sex Pistols song is Hang On to Yourself from this record. They're all that. It's the same guitar tone.
That's a hot take.
It's the truth.
Yes.
Listen, Sid Vicious very famously wore David Bowie shirts. Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols was at a Ziggy Stardust show and stole Bowie's gear. Do you guys know that story?
I do not know that.
I did not know. I did not catch that one.
All those kids that were the punks in the mid to late 70s were all Bowie fans in the early 70s.
Oh yeah.
And Steve Jones went to go see Bowie. I forget where it was. It might have been the Hammersmith Odeon, and they stuck around and stole their gear, Bowie's and the Spiders from Mars. I mean, that's what they did. This record, not only did it help invent glam rock, it's not the only glam rock record, and it wasn't the first one, but it also created punk rock. It absolutely did. And if you listen to that track, Hang On to Yourself, and then listen to the entirety of Nevermind the Bollocks, it's the exact same thing. It's exactly the same.
666 points for it in inventing punk rock.
There you go.
You've gone expansive for us. Now let's get reductive about it. Why is this album perfect? And what standards did you grade this album against for its perfection?
One of the reasons it's perfect is to highlight a point we made earlier, which is when I listen to Ziggy Stardust, the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, I don't ever skip a track.
No skips.
Okay.
There's no skips. I mean, to me, that is probably the most simple, elemental way to determine whether or not an album is a stone cold classic, which is, do you skip anything off? Do you skip it? Do you skip anything? I never skip anything off of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. As a matter of fact, when I put it on and I don't listen to it all the way through, I feel off. Like I feel like I've done something wrong because I haven't listened to it all the way through. So there's that. And then to make it about me, when I compare it to the great records, well, what I mean to say is rather than
I like that. Make it about you. We want that.
Let me make it about guys. Can I just focus on me for a minute?
Yeah. Go ahead.
But when I put it up there against the great records and the great albums, like your Purple Rains or your Revolvers, or It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, or whatever the great records are that speak to you, that speak to me, and those are all records that speak to me. There is a level of both artistry and this emotional investment that speaks to me. I mean, there are albums that I recognize that are sort of technically considered great, like
virtuosic.
Yeah. Or like let's say let's go with someone that Bowie admired, which was Dylan. Like, I know that Blonde on Blonde is great.
Yeah.
Like, for me, Highway 61 is better because it seems like he's feeling more. Blood on the Tracks is better because he's feeling more.
Blood on the Tracks is highly underrated, I think, in the context of that.
Yeah. I mean, Blood on the Tracks is an all-timer, but I think that Bowie has many albums that mean a lot to me, and there's a lot of them that have really high quality. Like Let's Dance means a lot to me, as I mentioned, but not every song on Let's Dance is a gem. There's one or two in there you're like, oh, it's okay, it's all right, but it's okay if I don't listen to it.
Yeah.
Or like there's the song on Let's Dance which is Putting Out Fire, which was which was the theme to the horror movie Cat People, written and directed by Paul Schrader of Taxi Driver fame.
I really dig. Yes.
Sure, of course you do, because why wouldn't you? But the version of Putting Out Fire from the soundtrack of that film is superior to the one that's on Let's Dance. They're not the same, right? And so sometimes I put on Let's Dance and I think, I wish this was the other version. I wish this was the soundtrack version. But when I listen to Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, I don't want one single thing of it to change. I don't wish for something more. I don't need it to be shuffled around, even though we said you could. I think you could, but I don't need that to happen. I never skip any tracks off of it. And whenever I listen to it, I go through an emotional journey. I get joyful. I feel moved. I laugh. I mean, Moon Age Daydream is a funny song. You know, I'm an alligator. I'm a poppin' coming for you. I mean, that's funny.
Yeah, it is.
Know? So I experience a whole gamut of things when I listen to this record, culminating in this song where I feel like, well, somebody understood me.
Yeah.
That's one person, you know, and this record means so much to me. As I said, like, my cat is named Lady Stardust. There's another cat in this house named Ziggy. My wife and I went to London a couple years ago to see one of our favorite bands, The Hold Steady, and we made a pilgrimage to the spot where the album cover of Ziggy Stardust was shot. It's in London. There's a plaque on the wall. It doesn't look like anything. It's
the Furriers, right? Was it K?
The Furrier, K West Furrier, but that sign is long gone. But I have a photo of me underneath the plaque that says this is where the album cover for Ziggy Stardust was taken.
We would like that photo, please, Jared.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. To me, he is one of the seminal artists of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century. And it's not just because he was so musically inventive and artistically adventurous. It's also because he makes me feel something.
I have never been a big Bowie fan at all.
Yeah.
And I remember, though, that what was his final album called again?
Black Star.
So I remember when it was announced that he died, even though I didn't know him all that well or his music super well, other than basically what I had seen of him on MTV, because I grew up watching MTV, I remember feeling like something. I had like an emotional response to learning about his death.
Yeah.
Because I just felt like, I felt like he was sort of, like you were saying earlier, he's kind of the patron saint of weirdos. Yeah. And it just, it was a palpable feeling. I remember having, I think I was in Chicago at the time. It was after I'd finished grad school, but I was in Chicago.
2016,
Yeah. And I put on that album just to listen to, just because I was trying to process, like, what is it that was going through his mind, like, towards the end. And it's, I don't know, I've never had an experience like that. I mean, I imagine that when Eddie Vedder dies, I'm going to be a wreck I'm going
to be destroyed. I'm going to be destroyed when Eddie dies.
For like months. I'm going to be a wreck. But the crazy thing was, like, I've never had a real attachment to Bowie in my life, but something about him leaving the planet, like, I just felt it, which is insane.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to talk about Black Star for a second, which is a stunning achievement, in my opinion.
Totally agree.
It's a stunning achievement as a record, because he, to your point, Michael, he wrote and recorded it knowing he was dying.
Yeah.
And that this was his final word on the subject of life.
Yeah.
And he reflects on it in all its glory and its difficulty and its sadness. And, you know, even to open that track with that song Black Star, which is like 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
which is a triumph, which sort of echoes. See, what's funny is, let me back up and say this. As much as I love this whole album, my favorite Bowie song is not on Ziggy Stardust. My favorite Bowie song is Station to Station, from the album Station to Station, which is another 10-minute opus. And so, like, to hear him explore that, to explore his own mortality in a way, not in an abstract way, right? It's not an abstract consideration. Like, he's dying and he knows it.
Yep.
So this is his last word. And you can feel that. You can feel that in there. And then, like, on that song, in that album, when he says, "If I never see the English evergreens that welcomed me," you know, like, your heart just rips too. But I think, though, Michael, you know, to your point, like, I felt that way. I mean, I was devastated when Bowie died, but I felt that way when Tom Petty died. And, like, I liked Tom Petty a lot, but I wasn't like a crazy super fan at all.
Yeah.
I saw the Heartbreakers one time. It was great. It was a great show and everything. But, like, okay, sure. But when Petty died, I was stunned at how heartbroken I was about it. And I think it's because these artists, like your Bowies and Pettys, not that they're anything alike musically at all, whether we like it or not, they're in the background of our lives. Our entire lives
100%,
backgrounded by the music of these artists. And so when they're gone, it leaves a vacuum that you just never thought would be there.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope that I encourage you to dive into Bowie's catalog. And I think being the music fan that you are, it'll reward you because there's so much to sift through, and there's so many different things and styles, and especially for anybody who is connected with Philadelphia in any way. Bowie, as we know, has a giant connection to Philadelphia. He recorded Young Americans here. The Sigma Kids were here, all that stuff. So the Philly sound, the Gamble and Huff sound was such a part of him. He's just an artist that, let me put it this way. I love the Beatles. Everybody loves the Beatles. That's no shocker. But I'm over the Beatles now because,
yeah,
you know what I mean? The Beatles were only together for 8 years, and the music they produced was incredible.
Yeah,
but there's nothing. Their catalog is actually pretty small, and there's only so many times I can listen to the White Album, hoping I'm going to uncover something new. But when you listen to an artist of longevity, like Bowie or Prince or Neil Young or the Stones, for that matter, who have these or Dylan, who have these really big catalogs, even when they have lows, and of course they all have lows, of course they do, but it's all fascinating. Yeah. It's fascinating to hear them chase those muses and see where it takes them and where it takes you as a result, and you end up finding things and little gems that you never heard of before.
I wanted to also just say on Black Star. The closing track on Black Star, I can't give everything away. Incredible song. And there's the Reznor mix of that, the farewell mix of that song that I think is really, really beautiful. And it's all the more beautiful now that I know this connection between Nine Inch Nails and Bowie and you, Jared. And then the Spoon cover that came out this year, I think is one of my favorite songs of the year of that, just out and out, one of the best songs, renditions of any song. And I think they do real justice to a song that closes out in an extraordinary album. I encourage everybody to listen to that. Maybe we'll share it. It's a good one.
I agree. Black Star is a triumph, and I would make the argument. This is a little off the cuff, but I would make the argument Black Star is probably the greatest final album by any artist ever.
Oh, I like that.
Because there was no other, because it was made with such conscious thought of what was happening.
Yeah. And we had no idea. We had no idea.
Yeah, because we didn't know.
I wanted to say also, all right, here's my thing about Let's Dance. I agree with every take you had about Let's Dance, but I also think that Modern Love is the perfect wedding song. And I'm a big wedding guy, and I think that is the song I request at every wedding. So I want to put that out there.
Modern Love is an excellent wedding song. When my wife and I got married, my wife's favorite Bowie song is Ashes to Ashes. And
nice.
When we this is a big long story, but we dated for a while and then we broke up and we got back together. When we got back together, it seemed like Ashes to Ashes was following us everywhere we went. We heard it everywhere. We went to go see. Did either of you guys see the Pillowman, or not the Pillowman? Sorry, that's the wrong Irish play. The Ferryman. Michael, did you see the Ferryman?
No, I didn't get to see the Ferryman.
Oh my God! Fucking an unbelievable night in the theater. Jez Butterworth, such a great play. But anyway, we're sitting there watching it. We're really excited, and one of the characters starts singing "Ashes to Ashes." We kind of freaked out. It just followed us everywhere. So, "Ashes to Ashes," which is not in any way a romantic Bowie song at all, that was our wedding song. Was "Ashes to Ashes."
Huh?
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. All right, should we go to the board? I mean, I could talk for a long time, but I think it's time.
I hope I haven't been going off on too many tangents. I hope.
God no.
You're good. I mean, well, okay. this will be edited, but yeah, you're good. Sure. You're good.
Yeah, God no, this is perfect. Jared, you made an incredible case. I think this is a landmark moment in the history of this podcast. I feel like this is an album that we were meant to talk about, and I'm very glad that you brought it. Running back your points from the most recent to the earliest, because this is about winning. I need to remind you that this is a competition, and that
I'm here to win. I'm 100% here to win.
I could feel it from you. I think I don't know if I said it out loud, but I gave you 600 points for saying I don't wish for anything more or for anything to change about this album, because I think that is right at the core of what this podcast is all about. Strong point about no skips. It's a strictly bangers album, right? I gave you 666 points for this being the album that invented punk rock. Fuck yeah. I gave you the single highest point award in the history of the podcast in all 5 seasons, which I believe that's the case. I give points willy-nilly, but I gave you 6 million points for Bowie being the patron saint of the misunderstood, imploring you to live. on Rock and Roll Suicide. Couldn't have said it better myself. 40,000 points for this one being strictly bangers again. 9,000 points for your Bowie experience being one that also included 9 Inch Nails, because I love that and I'm very jealous. 10,000 points for I would have been happy to. Oh no, I gave you $1 million for that. So there's another $1 million for you. I would have been happy to stay there for the rest of my life. Yeah. And I believe that you said that about Prince during the Purple Rain moment.
Purple Rain and Prince.
Yeah. And I mean, I felt that way about Purple Rain at the Super Bowl, so I can only imagine how it felt in person, right? Yeah. And then 4,000 points for just live rock and roll being the most joyful experience that we as a species can share. Shit, man, you're good at this. You're good at podcasts. You're good at talking about music. Strong case. Add all that to the A- that you gave me for my 60-second intro. Quite proud of that one.
Yep.
And an A- is perfect for it. I think it's a pretty strong board. So, Michael.
Yes.
I leave it to you, my friend.
No, you can stop. Yes, it's a perfect album.
It's a perfect album. It goes right to 11. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
You did a damn fine job. This has been really, really fun.
Thank you. I'm so glad to have been here, and I want your listeners to know that you guys are going to be guests on our show in the not too distant future, talking about some Prince stuff. And Ed and I are very excited to have you on.
Can't wait.
Get that organized, yeah.
Looking forward to it. Have a long playlist of YouTube videos from the Prince catalog to review.
Yes.
So, Michael, we should talk about what we chose as our standout track from this album. What did we choose?
I'm super curious.
We chose Starman, the first, I guess technically the first single from the album. I think it wasn't released before the album actually came out, but it was. It's it's the song. I think it's probably the most recognizable song from the album, aside from maybe Suffragette City. But yeah, we chose Starman. We're going with a classic to leave our listeners with, and I feel good about that choice. How about you, Tyler?
I do too, because I think for all the reasons that you so poignantly made about Rock and Roll Suicide, I think Starman is like a launch pad. I think it's just one of the best songs in his catalog at large. So I hope that it leads to, start with the hits. If you don't know Bowie, there's so much out there. So my access. I didn't really share this part, but my first entry point into Bowie was the Greatest Hits album. It was the best of Bowie. And I think that's a totally legit way to get introduced to him.
It totally is. For any of these giant artists, whoever they are, these hits albums are a totally legit way to get in. You have to get in somehow. And so that's a totally fair way to get into anybody, I think.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that is less than about experiencing it that way. And I will talk more about that on a upcoming special segment that I think our listeners will hopefully enjoy. But yeah, Starman's just incredible. This album's fucking perfect.
I'll say I think the video clip is on YouTube. When Bowie died, he was his neighborhood was Brixton, right outside of part of London, and the people in his neighborhood just went out in the street and started spontaneously singing Starman. Have you guys seen this?
No, man.
It's hundreds of people. They're all just sort of like they walk out in the street because they don't know what to do because Bowie just died, and someone starts singing Starman, and then they all just sing it.
Yeah,
it's very moving. It's very moving.
It's good to be alive, isn't it? It's great to be alive.
It's great to be alive, and it's great to be a rock and roll fan and be alive.
It is, man. Yeah. Hell yeah, Jared, this has been a delight. Thank you so much for coming on. Can't wait to be on your pod. Michael, you got anything else for him?
No, just thanks for helping us kick off our new season. This is a great way to start off season 5.
Holy shit, let's
go.
It
was my great pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. It was really a thrill because I talk about Bowie all the time on our show, but not in this great detail. So this has been a real joy for me, and I'm very grateful to you both. So thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Sure.
Well, let's let the listeners hear a little bit of Starman, and we will catch you all next week. Bye.